ECU?
R.
Do you bleed purple and gold? Are you ready to hoist the colors?
Hoist the colors!
It's time for the most in-depth look into the world of ECU athletics. Welcome to Hoist the Colors with your host, Stephen Igo on 94.3 The Game. Watch the show live on Facebook and at 943thegame.com. Here's Stephen Igo.
Welcome in. It is Hoist the Colors on a Thursday, June 19th edition of the program. We've got a lot to discuss. We'll continue on with our ECU football opponent previews over the course of the next hour. We'll have Temple. Nothing like talking Temple Owls football against ECU on June 19th. But this is what we do. This is why we do it. And we were scheduled to talk Charlotte today. We had to postpone that at the last minute. So we'll get Charlotte next week. But we're going to get all 12 ECU football opponents in and previewed by the end of June. I promise you that. So we've got Ryan Wallen from Owls Daily 24/7 joining us here in about 15 minutes. Looking forward to that. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, and X. Got a question, a comment, a concern? Drop it in the chat. We've got a lot of little ECU news and notes to get to today. Later in the program, I will drop some baseball nuggets. I'm hearing some things on the staff and recruiting front. We also just got, as we took the air, the numerical ECU basketball roster update, and two players I didn't know existed are on the roster. So we'll try to do some research. I'm assuming they're walk-ons. They are on the numerical roster, and all the new transfers have their jerseys as well. We'll get into that discussion. If you want to get into the Sun Belt discussion, you can ask a question about it. I think Philip and I addressed it pretty much yesterday as well. We can get into some MLB, Alec Burleson heating up. Also, Zach Agnew sent back down the AAA earlier this week. So we got a lot of little stuff to get to. We also have College World Series to discuss. Philip Pilkington, you were at the Tarboro River Bandits game last night where one Dominic Kasulki was on the play-by-play. I don't know if you heard him at all, but I can't imagine the atmosphere was quite as electric as it was in Omaha. But did you get a chance to watch the insanity at all between Arkansas and LSU last night?
Well, the atmosphere when Parker Bird caught the first pitch from the young man who had to have his leg amputated due to cancer, it was pretty electric when that happened. But the game itself,
now you're making me feel bad.
Yeah, the game itself, no, was not. Obviously, I didn't see it live, but I have gone back, seen the highlights, and yeah, man, death taxes and Arkansas choking away leads in the postseason, I guess, because this was kind of flashback to the NCAA tournament for basketball.
Yeah, I feel horrific for every Arkansas baseball player. I guess that includes Zach Root as well. But I don't know, man. That was just it was a tough watch last night, watching them really just melt down, and specifically the shortstop, Beloy, who is going to be a first-round pick. So if you didn't watch the game, Arkansas was up by 2 runs in the bottom of the ninth, and they had first and second with 1 out. Pretty routine ground ball was hit to shortstop where Eloy plays, and instead of trying to turn the double play, which it was not 100% certainty that he would have turned the double play, but instead of trying to turn the double play and go to second for the relay to first, he just pivoted and threw it to third for the second out of the inning. And I haven't gone back to see if he's addressed his postgame or not, or if anybody addressed it. So I'll try to check on that in a minute. But just kind of a brain fart moment, or got caught up in the lights. He just threw to third to get the force out there, which was fine, except for the next guy hit a screaming line drive. And the left fielder kind of stumbled, misread it, and then he misjudges it. It bounces off his shoulder, ricochets into the corner, allowing the tying runs to score. And then LSU ends up walking it off, which, by the way, the line drive up the middle nearly caught, of course, deflects off the glove of the infielder and then trickles into center field, allowing LSU to score the game-winning run. It was just like a series of unfortunate events. And credit LSU, they were awesome. They've got some magic in Omaha, but I think honestly more of a choke job than like LSU doing the job, I would say. Certainly a combination, as it always is, Philip. But this was more to me, and I hate to say like a college situation is a choke job, unlike professionals where like it's, I don't know, you feel less guilty about it. But this to me was a choke job, unfortunately.
I'm sure these Arkansas players are being paid enough that we can call them
True.
college choke job. And I think what was the head-scratching play for me when he went to third is I think had this been a one-run game, I could have understood it. You know, you don't want to try and turn two maybe, and all of a sudden you don't get it, and then you got the tying and run 90 feet away. But with the two-run game, that run didn't matter. That was the weird part about it. And then, you know, you kind of mentioned the series of unfortunate events. It's one of those things where, have we seen this happen? Yes, but it seems to happen to Cinderella, right? It's, oh, man, they didn't know. They stood a chance to win another game, and they blew it, and this happened. But Arkansas was the favorite. I mean, maybe not the favorite, but a favorite. They were picked by a lot of people to win. They were picked by almost everyone to at least make it to Omaha. They were supposed to be here. They had played in big games. They came from the SEC, so they were playing games like this 3 times a week minimum. And I think that's the reason we feel the way we do in calling it a choke job and being so at odds. Because I think look, I'm not trying to pick on anybody. I'm really not. But if this happened to Murray State, I don't think we'd be talking about it as much. And, congratulations to Murray State. I'm not trying to take anything away from them. These guys are fantastic baseball players, won a great run. But there is a difference in Arkansas with a bunch of first-round draft picks on their team and Murray State. There is.
Absolutely. And I just saw Aloy, which, again, this is a tough spot for me to evaluate. Aloy did not show up, at least according to a screenshot I'm seeing on Twitter, to the post-game press conference, despite his name tag being there. And so, like, I don't know. I mean, it's at the end of the day, he is a college player, but, like, he also is probably getting paid a lot of money. Like, and these guys, I guess they're not required. I mean, the NCAA does mandate you're supposed to bring players to the podium, and he had a name tag. And it looks like he didn't show up, but I don't know. What's your take on that, Philip, as far as, like, the guy probably just lost the most heartbreaking game of his life. He knows he's going to get asked about it post-game. And maybe he was just inconsolable. He was in tears after the game to where he couldn't go up there and answer it. But, like, I'm kind of with you to the point of, like, these guys are now – we know Zach Root is getting paid at least a few $100,000 from what I've heard to play at Arkansas. So, like, at what point do we kind of expect said players to have to answer for it as well? I mean, it's a tricky line to walk, I will say that.
It is, because if people are making financial commitments, you need to show up. But on the other side of the thing is this was his final college baseball game. And I think the everyday person sitting out there who played high school athletics can remember what that last loss felt like. And, hey, I'm never playing again. Yes, he's going to go on to bigger and better, but you don't get the team atmosphere at the pro level that you do college. For your school, there's not the pride. And I think there is a little bit of, we got to give him a little bit of leeway. Again, it was his final college baseball game. You know, it's a little different when you mess it up in the ALDS, you're 28 years old, and you're making $40 million, and you've got next year and the year after that and another 10 years after that left on your contract. That is completely different than a 21-year-old kid or 20 or whatever he is, you know, playing in his final college baseball game, because he will never go to Omaha again. He will never have the opportunity to go to Omaha again. He will never put on a college uniform again. So I do sympathize with him for that. I guess once they start revenue sharing, officially paying players, I guess they could fine them. Because like you said, the teams are required, but the player, I don't think any one specific player is required. You don't have a beast mode situation saying I'm just here so I don't get fined kind of thing in college baseball. So I'm with you that maybe when people are making this much a financial investment, you want to hear it, but also, like, there is the human part of this. He's a human being. He is a kid. I mean, yes, he's over 18, but I want to cut him a little slack. I mean, I couldn't imagine being in that spot.
Yeah, tough situation for sure. Arkansas melts down. Dave Van Horn cannot get his team back to the finals to win that elusive first championship. It almost reminds me of ECU's inability to get to Omaha is Arkansas. Like, their fans, they think they're cursed because they can't win a national championship. And ECU fans think they're cursed because they can't get to Omaha. It's like everything that could go wrong or will go wrong goes wrong. Just kind of you kind of feel for that situation. You know how tough it is and how much pressure those guys probably put on themselves to win that elusive title, because Arkansas's got elite baseball fans, elite culture, especially since Dave Van Horn has got that thing rolling. All right, so this does set up a fascinating championship, Philip. Coastal Carolina and LSU. This is actually a rematch of the Super Regional when Coastal beat LSU in Baton Rouge to go on to Omaha the first time in 2016, ended up winning the national title. You have like the hottest team maybe in the world of, like, legitimately the world in any sport. I mean, they have won 26 consecutive games. They have not lost since April 22nd, nearly 2 months to the day. And it's getting a little ridiculous. And my prediction was Coastal over LSU, with Coastal not losing a single game, and not to pat myself on the back, but that's a possibility, because I really think if LSU can find a way to beat Coastal once, Philip, and this series will start on Saturday, so these two teams will get a few days off, which means we'll get best on best as far as pitching, which is another reason I'm really looking forward to this thing. Like, if they can find a way to beat Coastal once, my question is, like, how do they even react to that? Because it's been so long since they've lost a single game. But Coastal is just playing with unbelievable belief right now. They don't strike out. Caden Bodine, he's still so many strikes. They've got elite pitching. They are just a perfectly constructed team. I think now 55, 56, and 11, whatever the record is insane. I can't pick against Coastal here, although probably LSU will present the biggest challenge they have seen, especially on the mound from a talent standpoint, probably all season.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? I remember saying when this thing started that if LSU was going to come out of their side of the bracket, they were probably going to have to go 3-0. LSU's got the firepower to really win a one-game deal, and I think they've even got the firepower to win a two-game deal. If this was a 7-game series, I can tell you I'd be all over the Chanticleers. And I'm still going to pick Coastal, I am. But I really think this could go either way. I don't think there is a favorite because, to your point, on paper, LSU is better. They're a little more battle-tested. But there is something to say about the mind being a powerful thing, and Coastal believes, not that LSU doesn't, but 26 in a row. I mean, there is a little bit of randomness to 26 in a row, no matter how good you are. I mean, the 27 Yankees never won 10 in a row. That's the greatest baseball team that ever lived. Their biggest win streak that year was 9. So there is a little bit of randomness to 26 in a row. You got to be good, but it's I don't want to say it's got to come to an end because they very well could win 28 in a row. Like, they are good enough, and I think what I like about this team is if somebody gets – you don't want to start with a guy in the bullpen because that mentally can mess with your starter, but if something happens, they're not out of it. They don't have to worry about getting behind when it comes to their pitching because there is no getting behind when it's only 3 games and they've got the depth in that bullpen and the depth of starters that they have. If a guy goes out there and lays an egg, this team is not out of it. And the other reason I like this team, and it reminds me a lot of their 2016 team, they can manufacture runs. Coastal the last few years has been like the Yankees, and it's all about the long ball. And if the long ball's not going, which it never flies out at Charles Schwab Park, then they're hosed and they get into super regionals or regionals and they just can't hit the long ball. But this team knows how to manufacture runs. They can hit the long ball, but they knew how to move base runners. They have very good disciplined plate approaches. Like, this is a very complete baseball team.
No doubt, and they're the favorite for a reason going in. I think, despite facing LSU, just because of the way they're playing. But it'll be, to me, I've been pretty all in on Omaha, and I think this is the best case scenario. I think Arkansas or LSU versus Coastal would have made for a fascinating championship, and now that we get 3-0 LSU versus 3-0 Coastal, I think it's going to be fantastic. It'll be interesting to see what direction both teams go in because they both have really 2 number ones, Morrison and Flukie on Coastal side, and then Cade Anderson, and also the young man, I can't think of his name, Ianson for LSU, who really has number 1 stuff too. Like, how do they match up those 2 things with enough rest to be able to slot them in either order? Really curious to see how this plays out going into the weekend, but should be fascinating. So we did get a question. We'll get to it in our third segment. We got a question on our thoughts on the broadcast. Also, Newton Smith says, when did Coastal get beat by ECU this season? Also, we were 1 point possibly from being in their shoes. And Ryan Benner adds, we might have played the toughest games against Coastal. Yeah, to this point, ECU has provided the toughest test for Coastal. I mean, Auburn, I guess, did as well. So I don't want to, there was an extra inning win at Auburn. But, that 1-0 game in particular. And then ECU beat Coastal. Newton, to answer your question, it was March 7th, 7-0. So they've lost 4 in a row since then, but that was the Ethan Norby 19 strikeout game. And 3 of those 4 games since have been very competitive. All right, let's get a break in. We come back. We'll switch gears. We'll talk Temple Owls football. We'll preview that game. Temple will host the Pirates this year in Lincoln Financial Field. We'll catch up with Ryan Wallen of Owls Daily 24/7 to get the outlook on the Owls going into 2025. We'll circle back to College World Series talk later. This is Hoisted Colors on Thursday.
The team of Flatlands Jessup is working overtime to help ensure that Eastern North Carolinians like you get the health insurance help you need this open enrollment period. New legislation passed meaning more people than ever qualify for affordable coverage. Let us help you today.
Big tax credits are back. Get a 30% tax credit, up to $2,000 off your new Mitsubishi electric heat pump install. Let Comfort Master help you take advantage of the tax credits with a qualifying Mitsubishi electric ducted heat pump or non-ducted Mitsubishi electric mini splits. Mitsubishi electric mini splits are ideal for bonus rooms, garages, or sunrooms. If you need a new HVAC unit, call Comfort Master today.
Call Comfort Master. Call Comfort Master.
At Parker's Barbecue, our family has been serving your family for 3 generations.
For that, we say thank you.
Blessing families every Thursday. Kids eat free all day. That's the Parker's way.
Legendary food served from our 3 locations. Always quick, always delicious. That's the Parker's way.
At Parker's, our mission is to impact our customers through Christ-like service in a way that feeds them both physically and spiritually. That is the Parker's way.
You know what the problem is with standard belts? Usually you have to choose between too tight or the opposite, too loose. But with Anson Belt and Buckle, you don't have to choose. We got rid of the holes and instead have a track system designed for micro adjustability. That way you can enjoy a perfect fit every time. Anson Belt and Buckle. Find your perfect fit today.
Healthwise Pharmacy rounds the bases with all of your infusion, retail, compounding, and medical equipment needs. Locally owned and operated by pharmacist Marcy Parker, Healthwise has grown to be your most trusted provider for infusion services. Currently providing in-home or on-site infusions in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. Visit Healthwise Pharmacy at 615B South Memorial Drive or call 252-295-0059 to speak to a patient service representative to find the option that best suits your needs.
Tired of the 1-800 numbers advertising Medicare products? Flatlands Jessup has 6 offices all throughout Eastern North Carolina. Get face-to-face help from our local award-winning licensed team. Stop by today. Flatlands Jessup, your whole world covered.
It's back.
Inner Banks Media presents the #1 outdoor concert series in Greenville.
Concert on the
The
Common.
next band to hit the stage at the Greenville Toyota Amphitheater is On the Border, the ultimate Eagles tribute.
Get more details on this year's concert series at concertonthecommon.org. See you June 26th for On the Border. We're live with Stephen Igo on 94.3 The Game. Now, back to Hoist the Colors.
All right, welcome back in. Hoist the Colors here on a Thursday. It's June 19th. We talked some College World Series segment 1. We'll circle back to that in segment 3. Also, if you got any questions, comments on anything, we can dabble on that. Segment 3 and 4 pretty wide open on today's show. But right now, we are going to continue our ECU football opponent previews. We are going to take a look at the Temple Owls. It'll be the Pirates going back to Philly in November. November 1st will be the date. We welcome in Ryan Wallen of Owls 24/7, a frequent guest of Hoist the Colors over the years. Ryan, how's it going, man?
I'm doing well, Steven. How are you?
Doing good, Ryan. And, man, another interesting offseason for Temple. Obviously, with the coaching change, Stan Drayton let go after 3 seasons, 3 wins each of those years, and they bring in Casey Keller from Sam Houston State. So, interesting hire. Obviously, Casey's had a ton of success everywhere he's been across multiple levels. Just the initial excitement, or how would you describe the vibe right now across Philly with the hiring of KC, who has a pretty good background?
Yeah, I think unlike the past couple of hires that Temple had made at the head coaching position, I think Keeler, it was a real home run hire in the eyes of the fan base, as well as from what we've seen already through spring ball and all, I think through the players and some of the media as well, just in the sense that Keeler brings that veteran coaching experience to the table, and that's something that Temple kind of shied away from the last coaching search in hiring Drayton, who had never been a head coach before, had never been a coordinator before. Now you're getting a guy who has 30-plus years as a head coach across all different levels of college football, and like you mentioned, has had a tremendous amount of success wherever he's been, has only had 4 losing seasons in 32 years of college coaching, which in itself speaks for itself, I think. So that's what I think Temple really wanted this time, was a guy who not only had that success, but he also had ties to the Northeast. Keeler himself is from right outside of Philly. Families from his wife's family's from Philly, so he wanted to come back home. He said that in his introductory press conference. He said it was time for him to come back home. So it almost seems like this is also possibly his last stop, being that he's 65 years old. This will probably be his final coaching stop. So Temple has hopefully that window of opportunity where he now will not be looking for other jobs, no matter how successful he is. And he has that veteran coaching experience to be able to navigate the transfer portal, NIL, and the modern world of college football.
Risen with Ryan Wallen of Al's Daily 24/7, part of the 24/7 Sports Network, just like Hoist the Colors. And look, everything, as you know, Ryan, starts and ends with the quarterback position. I believe Evan Simon is returning, but also they bring in some transfers, Giovanni McCoy from Oregon State. So how's the quarterback competition looking as of now, as we sit here in mid-June?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a real open competition heading into fall camp. Obviously, didn't get to see McCoy throughout the spring as he had transferred to Texas State in the offseason, and then went through spring ball with Texas State, but then decided to re-enter the portal after that. So I'll be interested to see what he actually can do coming into Temple in the fall. But he obviously, on paper, has a lot of upside. He was the Jerry Rice Award winner at Idaho when he was a freshman in 2022. Has thrown for more than 7,000 yards in his career, again, across the FCS and FBS levels of college football. You mentioned his time at Oregon State last year, having won that job at what was, a Power 5 school up until last year. That should speak for itself as well in something. He also has a little bit more versatility than Simon, I think, in the sense that he brings a little bit more of a running, a scrambling ability than Simon does. But you mentioned Simon is the returning starter. He obviously is going to be learning a new offense this year, but still was very solid last year. And even though he hadn't won the job coming out of camp last year, quickly showed why he had won the starting job at Rutgers when he was at Rutgers too, is that he just has this veteran mentality about him where he is just a calming presence. He's praised for his locker room leadership. And he had times where he had a little bit of that magic where he established some consistency in Temple's offense that really had been lacking since E.J. Warner's departure from Temple.
Visiting with Ryan Wallen, who covers Temple. And look, I remember last year during the East Carolina game, Therese Worthy was a guy who really stood out to me. So when he entered the portal, I figured there was a good chance he would land somewhere else. It looks like he's now back at Temple after withdrawing. And, do you expect him to be a focal point of the offense? And what else offensively around the quarterback position do you expect to kind of emerge from this Owls offense?
Yeah, I think Worthy's going to be – he's going to be a guy that's featured just as a systemic weapon because he has just some incredible speed once he gets into the open field, and he has that ability to make guys miss. I don't know if he's going to be the feature back heading into the season. He might be number 2 or number 3 on the depth chart, but I think when you have a guy that with that type of speed and escapability, he has to be featured in the offense. And even if he's not there, he has shown in the return game where he can flash. So I definitely think he'll be a part of Temple's plan moving forward. As far as the running game is concerned, that's been Temple's biggest issue over the last 5 years, really, since predating COVID. They just really haven't been able to find a consistent workhorse in the running back room, a guy who could find the holes when they need to. And hopefully they found that in bringing transfer Jay Ducker in from Sam Houston State, who follows Keeler from the Bearcats program. Mentioned throughout the spring that the reason why he transferred to Temple was because he wanted to play for Coach Keeler. He loves him that much. So Ducker is, even though he's at his fourth school, he is somebody who's seen success at whatever school he's been at. He was a MAC freshman freshman of the year in 2021 at Northern Illinois, transfers to Memphis, leads the team at Memphis in rushing one of his 2 years there, and then goes out and helps Sam Houston last year to a 9-3 record and leads their team in rushing. So obviously he has an ability to lead teams in rushing. It's just whether the offensive line in front of him is going to open those holes, hopefully. But he flashed throughout the spring. When we were reading the logs and actually attending practice, you could see why he is probably the best Temple running back they've had since Raquel Armstead was there, who obviously then went on to the NFL. So that's where the running game probably stands right now. But the passing game, the receiving room is the biggest question mark heading to the season. We really have no idea who's going to be that guy that's going to step up and be that primary number 1 receiver now that Dante Wright has graduated. You have guys coming back from injury, a couple guys left during or after spring ball during the off season here, who we thought were going to be contributors. So a lot of unprovenness in that wide receiver room. But one of the things that Temple has relied on to kind of supplement those receiver issues the last couple years has been the tight ends, and they've obviously produced very solid tight ends over the years. I think that's going to be the case again. We've heard a lot about a true freshman name coming out of Canada, Ryder Cush. I've heard he's going to be a very vital part of the offense and possibly is on track to be the number 1 tight end come fall.
Defensively, Ryan, we know when Temple is Temple, like they're good on defense, and we know the Temple tough mentality. You know, how much of a sense have you been able to get that Casey Keeler is going to try to bring that aspect back of the program? It just feels like when Temple is good in football, that is a real big part of their culture, their mentality. So kind of it feels like they maybe got away from that under Drayton a little bit.
Yeah, I totally agree as far as the sense that, you know, when you hear the phrase Temple tough, you think that hard-nosed style defense that Matt Rule and Jeff Collins really had at the program. And coincidentally, and then even Al Golden, you know, coincidentally enough, those were Temple's best years in program history. And it was built around defense and old school style football. And I think that's what Keeler's going to try to bring to the table is a return to that mentality. Defensively, we heard from Keeler throughout the spring that he believes the defensive line is the greatest strength on this unit, and that he felt comfortable that they could rotate six or seven guys during the spring without seeing any real drop-off. So that's good to hear, especially when you're trying to rebound from a defense last year that was 131st nationally and giving up rushing yards. So that obviously is going to be something to keep an eye out for if that actually ends up being the case, and if the defensive line can actually stay healthy this year. The biggest question mark, I would say, definitely on the defense is usually where Temple doesn't struggle, and that's in the linebacker room, just simply because they graduated DJ Woodbury, and then Tyquan King decided to transfer back home to UConn, and he was an all-conference player last year. So you have two of your middle linebacker spots wide open right now. We're thinking that Jalen Stewart, a transfer from UMass, is going to come in and kind of fill in that Tyquan King role and possibly be that ability to be that all-conference type linebacker. But Temple has always had a history, again, of producing very high-quality linebackers. Even when they did have to throw younger guys into the fire, they usually rise to the occasion. So that'll be something to watch out for. And then the cornerback room is another question mark, just because Keeler admitted that a lot of the guys in that cornerback room have not played a lot of football. The younger guys, there's a lot of freshmen and a lot of transfers. So that's just going to be something that they're going to have to develop quickly throughout camp, and there's probably going to be some growing pains come the fall. But, hopefully the defensive line and the linebackers can kind of supplement that a little bit and get a little bit more pressure on quarterbacks to take some pressure off those corners.
Ryan Wallen with us from Al's Daily 24/7. And Ryan, we know the portal has been a challenge for a lot of teams in the American, at times Temple as well, especially after a coaching change. What's kind of your sense of how much they are willing to invest with this rev share? I mean, certainly they've got to meet the minimum the American is asking for. Every team does. And, NIL support for the program, has that taken a step forward, specifically with the hiring of a new coach? Just what's kind of your gauge there?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that you mentioned as far as the portal is first, I was surprised with how few players did leave and enter the portal after Drayton was fired and Keeler came in. Typically it's not like that. Like you mentioned, typically it's a 50, 60 player roster turnover, and it's all new players, and you have a couple of the younger guys who maybe stay. But that wasn't really the case with Temple. Obviously there was some turnover, but it was a good sign that people bought into Keeler's mentality right away, because he was very blunt during spring ball and said, if you're going to enter the portal, that's it. If you don't want to be with us, fine. You need to go find a new place. We'll help you do that, but obviously you don't want to be part of the team. And I think that sort of mentality spoke to the players, because they knew that they were getting a coach that was committed to them. But as far as the investment into NIL and revenue is concerned, I think that Temple's administration actually is finally realizing the importance of having to invest into NIL and the rev share aspect. And the good thing is that Keeler has done this before at the FCS level with Sam Houston in dealing with partial scholarships and all this new stuff that goes along with the change that are coming to college football. He has that knowledge behind him. So I think that's an advantage for Temple in being able to navigate how to divvy up the scholarships properly and, not have that hard 85 limit anymore. And I think just in that, Temple is also trying to go out and promise playing time to players. And I think that's been a real win so far in the recruiting aspect. They've had a really hot month in June. On the recruiting trail, they're getting some of the top players in the state, in the Northeast region, and in the state of Pennsylvania. So that's good to see, obviously under a first-year head coach and a guy who's been a proven winner. And Temple's admin is committed to now investing into that. I think it's been reported now that Temple's 4th or 5th in what they're willing to commit in the American to that aspect. And a couple years ago definitely was not that level with the NIL investment. So I think in the sense that Temple's admin has taken over the primary funds that divvy out the NIL, I think that they're finally committing to, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to do to win. And this is what we need to do to be successful, in the hopes that maybe during the next wave of college football realignment, because we know it's going to come at some point, maybe Temple's in a better position rather than getting left out in the dust.
All right, final thing with Ryan Wallen from Al's Daily 24/7. All right, so the win total in Vegas, look, they've got Temple at 3.5. And looking at the schedule, I mean, there's definitely a path to over that. It just depends on really how all this comes together. They open with UMass on the road and then host Howard. And then, tough non-conference finish, Oklahoma and Georgia Tech back-to-back. They do miss Memphis and USF in conference play. Just, what are realistic expectations for KC Keeler in year one, in your opinion, Ron?
I think realistic expectations, can definitely go over that 3.5 win total. I think, like you mentioned, the first 2 games on the schedule are very winnable for Keeler and this new regime at Temple. The real measuring stick, I think, will be those 2 non-conference games against Oklahoma and Georgia Tech, specifically that Georgia Tech game, just to see where Temple really is up against, not a top-tier P4 program, but a team that's been competitive recently, has seen a real good uptick with Brett Key as their head coach. at Georgia Tech. So I think that'll be a real measuring stick. And then, when they get into conference play, they have to face UTSA and Navy, two of the upper class teams in the league right there. So that'll also just kind of tell where Temple is sitting right now in the league. But I think there's a path, like you said. Charlotte to me looks like a very winnable game. Tulsa looks like a winnable game. East Carolina could be a toss-up between the two teams, and then Temple had North Texas on the ropes at the end of last year. So I see that as a winnable game too. So I definitely think there's a path to over that 3.5 win total, but it also is going to depend on a lot of factors. Who's the quarterback? Can Temple run the ball? Can people stay healthy? But there's also the factor of how much influence does Keeler have? Is there that dog mentality that the players will have, and how will they respond to adversity? And at times, Temple has responded to adversity under Drayton, which was a better sentiment than what we saw under Rod Carey. But how are they going to respond to a new head coach, Keeler, and how are they going to respond to that adversity when it inevitably hits? Because every team faces it at some point or another during the season. It's just, can they find a way to overcome and restore that Temple tough mentality that we mentioned earlier?
He is Ryan Wallen. Check him out, owlsdaily.com. They do a great job covering Temple athletics. Always appreciate going back and forth with you, Ryan, across this American Athletic Conference relationship we got. So appreciate it, man, and let me know if you ever need anything on ECU's end.
Appreciate it, Stephen. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. That's Ryan Wallen of Owls Daily, part of the 24/7 Sports Network, as we knock out another opponent preview. Again, we were scheduled to do Charlotte as well today. We'll push that back. Looking at Monday, recording sometime, although we are scheduled to have Athletics Director John Gilbert in studio on Monday. So we will get to Charlotte and the rest of the conference schedule at a later date next week before we wrap up for summer hiatus. All right, we'll get a break in. We come back. We've got some questions to get to. Also, a little bit of breaking news on the baseball recruiting front I will share, and more. This is Hoist the Colors on a Thursday.
This is about you, your family, and the health of all who live in Eastern North Carolina. This is about the transformation of a health system into something more powerful and more human. About creating new ways to treat disease and keep you well. This is about ECU Health, which is to say, it's really all about you. ECU Health. Minds, hearts, purpose.
You have a choice when you invest in insurance, and when you choose First State Insurance Advisors, you're working with people you can trust. Clark Stallings has deep ties in the community. His team, including Keaton Smith, Regina Asby, Phil Leva, Max Joyner Jr., Max Joyner III, and Ginger Smith, provides knowledgeable and professional advice. First State Insurance Advisors is an independent insurance agency. They offer all types of personal insurance as well as various types for business. Call or email First State Insurance Advisors today. We want to be your trusted choice agency.
Other restaurants claim their food is fresh and fast, but are they friendly? At Moore's, you're treated like family the minute you walk into their doors. With locations in Winterville, New Bern, Swansboro, Morehead City, and Jacksonville. We've been practicing what we preach since 1945. At Moore's, our barbecue is slow cooked and smoked over real wood daily until it's so tender it's falling off the bone. Combined with our fresh chicken, cooked-to-order seafood, and homemade fixins, we're sure you'll agree. If it's not Moore's, it's less.
Storm season is approaching. North Carolina weather can damage your roof, and before long, a small leak can turn into a big problem. Your home is one of your biggest investments, so protect it with Wells Home Improvements.
We work with all insurance companies for a hassle-free roof installation experience. Call us today and get 10% off your roof installation when you mention this commercial.
252-227-8403 or visit us online at wellshomeimprovements.com. Wells Home Improvements. Local, honest, dependable.
Want fresh, homegrown produce? Then look for Peden's Junior Produce. Peden's Junior Produce, a mobile produce stand, is on Memorial Drive beside Parker's Barbecue in Greenville and open Thursday and Friday 10 to 7, Saturday 8 to 7, and Sunday 11 to 6. Choose from seasonal produce like collards, squash, onions, potatoes, corn, and the list goes on. Support your local farmers and enjoy locally grown produce. To find out what's in season, check out Peden's Junior Produce on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Harvesting happiness one crop at a time.
Yo, ho, ho! And we're back to Hoist the Colors with Steve and Igo on 94.3 The Game.
Back in Hoist the Colors on a Thursday. We just had another opponent preview. And I always enjoy talking Temple Owls football, especially with Ryan. Does a great job. It's not always the most exciting thing talking Temple, but Ryan makes it much more exciting than maybe you would think it is. Philip Pilkinen is with us producing today's show. Philip, we both put in some money on the over win total for Tulsa after listening to Larry yesterday. Are you willing to do it again for the Owls? 3.5. I'll run down their schedule for you: at UMass, Howard, Oklahoma. By the way, how about Oklahoma? They will play at Temple on September 13th. So quite the home game there. At Georgia Tech, UTSA at home, Navy at home, at Charlotte, at Tulsa, ECU at home, at Army, Tulane at home, at North Texas. Are you willing to go over 3.5?
I think if we go over here, we're asking for a push, because I think the winner of the Tulsa Temple game will probably hit their over, and the loser will not hit their over. So the fact that we're getting both at minus money, it would probably guarantee us netting in the red. I'm going to keep my opportunity net in the black and pull hard for the Golden Hurricane against the Temple Owls with like 3 weeks left in the season or whatever the heck it is. And so I'm not going to do both.
That is very fair, although I will say I trust the hire of Casey Killer a little bit. Killer, I keep messing up that pronunciation. Either way, he has had a long track record of success. Not that Trey Lamb isn't a good coach as well for Tulsa, but I thought that was a sneaky great hire by Temple. I'm interested to see how it kind of translates. It's just a tough place to win, but we'll see. As by the way, he did say ECU is a 50-50 game. Lane Smith, not a fan of that comment. He says ECU is not a 50-50 game. Still, Temple on the road in November. I've seen ECU lay some stinkers at Temple. I'll say 60-40 game in favor of ECU. That is not as easy as it seems, I don't think.
No, it's not. However, I do think we're coming off a bye there, so that could definitely help. Well, it's interesting to see how we come back, whether we come out flat or come out feeling good after the bye. So that's got a little bit to do with it as well. But, yeah, this is probably their best hire since Matt Rule.
For sure. There's no doubt. All right. We'll address this question quickly. Brennan says, how do we feel about the Sun Belt reaching out to ECU? Not sure if it makes sense from a monetary standpoint, but, man, I would love to play App State every year. So we hit this one yesterday, Philip. I would say you can go back and listen to that, Brennan. We talked about that for a segment. But essentially, it pretty informal talks, and I don't expect anything to come of it now because financially it just doesn't make sense. Now, I'm fine with ECU playing App State every year as a non-conference foe for the time being. Like, why not? I think that should be an annual game, honestly. Home and away, neutral, whatever. That, to me, is you don't need to join the Sun Belt to do that.
No, you don't. I've always wondered, and I guess it was Virginia Tech for so long, right? But we do need to have a rival, an out-of-conference rival, I think, that would play every year. Georgia's got Georgia Tech, Florida's got Florida State, and so on and so forth. So it would be nice to have somebody like that. I would love for it to be App. And as to how I feel about them asking us, hey, thanks for the call. Appreciate the invite. Sorry, but not sorry. We ain't going.
No doubt. And maybe in 5 years we revisit this, but yeah, it's one of those things where right now financially it's just kind of a non-starter. All right. Lane Smith says, how many spots do we need to fill on the baseball team? That's always kind of a moving target because really you can sign over whatever the roster limit is in the fall, and then you can cut as many guys as you want as long as you have the number at the limit, which will go down to 34 with this new house settlement, although you can grandfather in players you would have cut previously. So it's a little bit of a confusing process, but the simple answer is this. You can have as many as you want on the fall roster. And so I think right now ECU is about projected to be full, maybe has room for a few more additions, and then you're going to have to make some subtractions at the end of the fall, almost like an open tryout period. This happens at basically every school, every major baseball school. You want to have more guys than spots going into the fall because you are always going to have guys leave, whether it be injury, unhappy with the way their playing time is projecting to play out, that sort of stuff. So that's one of those things where I think you probably are looking at 3, 4, maybe 5 more additions, a couple pitchers, maybe a position player or two, and then you're probably done. We're also waiting news on what's going to happen with the coaching staff. So we'll see what happens on that front. To continue to hear Jake Goutreau, former Mississippi State assistant coach, is in the mix for the job, although not official. And then also hearing that Bryant Packard will likely stay on in some sort of full-time role with the staff. So, by the way, some big recruiting news for baseball. I was just texting with this individual, Gavin Marley. He's a reliever closer for Lenore Ryan at the D2 level. He confirmed to me that he is verbally committed to East Carolina. You know, he told me he's kind of wanted to keep his recruiting off the radar to an extent. I did reach out to him for an article and interview. I'll have that up in the next several hours. But he visited NC State, ECU this week, just made the commitment to ECU today. Back-end reliever for Lenore Ryan last season. Through 39 innings, 59 strikeouts. So high strikeout rate there. 22 walks, 22 hits allowed in 39 innings. A 2.75 ERA. Also had number of saves here. Also had 10 saves. So once again, Phillip, hard throwing reliever from a lower level. Division II ranks coming to ECU. I like this. You know, we've seen North Carolina have a lot of success with adding smaller school transfers that have kind of dominated their level. And Marley looks like another back-end reliever that'll help out the Pirates.
Yeah, it's weird how that works. It seems like when you do it in football or in basketball, it doesn't work out so good. But you do it in baseball, yeah, like you mentioned, Scott Forbes has done a heck of a job doing it up in Chapel Hill. And, is he playing less competition? Sure. But the bottom line is if you can miss bats, you can miss bats. It doesn't matter whether you're pitching against, me or Aaron Judge. If you can blow one by somebody, I mean, obviously Judge is going to hit more than I can. But still, if you've got a knack for missing bats, you're going to do it. Sounds like he does. And then on top of it, I mean, the command's there, right? 22 walks in 39 innings paired with 22 hits. He's looking at a whip just north of 1, which you'll always take at the collegiate level. Do I think he's going to be quite that good at this level? Yeah, probably not, right? There's a few more balls that might get hit just a little bit harder, might be put in a little bit better of a gap. But at the end of the day, if this is a guy who can add bullpen depth, that's what you need. We're going to find out who our closer is. We'll find our Ethan Young eventually, and it could be him. It could be somebody else. But at the end of the day, you're going to need 6, 8, preferably 10 arms on that back end. Just ask the Beach Chickens how that's going, having just a bunch of decent guys, and look where they're at right now.
No doubt. All right, let's go ahead and get a break in. When we come back, we will discuss the new basketball roster officially announced. We've got the numbers. Also tell you about an addition from Luke Davis, who was formerly a standout at South Central. He's coming back home for his final year of college basketball. So interesting addition there. We'll tell you about that and more. This is Hoist the Colors on Thursday.
Hi, I'm D.R. Alligood.
And I'm his daughter, Jessica.
For 11 years, we have built quality driveways and parking lots for both your residential and commercial needs. We also offer free on-site quotes to have your custom driveways built the way you want.
252-946-1227.
Your roof is a vital part of protecting your home and family from dangerous storms and hurricanes. At Assist Roofing, we install and maintain metal roofing that provides precise protection. Add value to your home while lowering utility costs with a fortified roof to last a lifetime. With 0% financing, grants, and Energy Star Green Roofing tax credit available. Call us to schedule a free consultation so you can weather any storm with confidence.
Make every day electric on the Kawasaki Electro 20 electric balance bike. Maximize the fun with long run times, impressive top speed, and Kawasaki build quality. Easy adjustability and smooth handling make everyday riding more enjoyable. And the standard MTB type tires provide off-pavement capability. The Kawasaki Electro 20 is the electric balance bike that's built to rip. Go to Ron Ayers Motorsports, Memorial Drive north of the airport, Greenville.
Your confidence makes everything look good. You see the world in vivid color, not black and white. Swing through your neighborhood Fantastic Sam's cut in color and let our experienced stylists take you from everyday to extraordinary.
Fantastic Sam's hair salons are locally owned and operated. Our full-service salons are conveniently located in Goldsboro, Kinston, Greenville, New Bern, Jacksonville, and Calabash. Stop in today at Fantastic Sam's, where the possibilities are endless.
If you are interested in living longer and living stronger, Eastern Physical and Lifestyle Medicine is accepting new patients for a limited time. Finding a caring physician can be a challenge. Dr. Billy Smith is board certified in physical medicine and lifestyle medicine and has been practicing in the area for many years. Call for an appointment now to Eastern Physical and Lifestyle Medicine, 252-364-1108 in Greenville. That number again is 252-364-1108.
Looking for a great deal on a new Nissan? At Greenville Nissan, we've got a great selection of new Nissans for under $30,000. The stylish Nissan Sentra, offering top-notch fuel economy. The Nissan Altima, known for its comfort and technology. The Nissan Kicks, the perfect combination with its compact design and performance. The Nissan Versa, delivering incredible value without compromising on features. And don't forget the Nissan Rogue, an award winner for 10 years in a row. Drive it home just for $22 down and $349 a month. Visit GreenvilleNissan.com today. Greenville Nissan, where we drive to serve.
For 11 years, we have built quality driveways and parking lots for both your residential and commercial needs. We also offer free on-site quotes to have your custom driveways built the way you want.
Oh, hey, welcome back. You got here just in time. This is Hoist the Colors on 94.3 The Game.
All right, welcome back in. Final segment here, Hoist the Colors. I do want to point out, by the way, before we wrap up, that we do have a big recruiting weekend on tap for ECU football. We've got the details on that on hoistthecolors.net. You can go to the site now, sign up. 50% off a free full year, or it's not a free, a full year subscription, 50% off, and then $1 for your first month if you want to do the monthly route. So both those options available now. We got the full list of visitors up on Hoist the Colors on the football front. All right. We also have a new basketball roster. Philip Pilkington with us producing today. I said earlier this week I love the gold jerseys, and they have the graphic for this in the gold unis, which is why I would like to see them use this more moving forward. But, look, we know Jay Shane Woodard. He's back. He's wearing number 0. We also know the familiar names like Travion LeBeau, who's number 24. Jordan Riley running the back with the number 12. LaDante Felton, RJ's little brother, will wear 6 as he returns. Tybo Bailey will wear 4. And we've got several newcomers. Some guy named Jake Baker, which is like the most, if I had to do like a random generator player for a walk-on, I feel like his name would be Jake Baker. Also, somebody named Luke Davis, who's going to wear number 43. Now, I did some research on Luke Davis, and I was like, this guy looks familiar. He sounds familiar. That's because he played at South Central once upon a time, then went to Moravian Prep, then went to junior college, and then he went to New Orleans. He is now coming to East Carolina. I don't know what his scholarship status is, but he is a guy who has at least played a little bit. 6'8", stretch forward. Averaged 3.9 points, 4 rebounds per game, shot 35% from 3 on 20 attempts last year. So looks like a depth piece. He did start the final 5 games of the year for New Orleans, but kind of an interesting addition there as a walk-on, an older guy, Phillip, who we really haven't heard anything about at this point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like when you say New Orleans, you mean like the Privateers, right? Like
Yep.
Actually started at a D1 school. So obviously New Orleans didn't have a great year, I think, this past year. There was a few years ago they did make the NCAA tournament. But, hey, anytime you can add a depth piece, I mean, you don't think of walk-ons playing, but you never know. Injuries happen. Guys don't pan out how you planned, and obviously you can shoot the rock, so that's big. But to your point with both of those guys, if you asked me what they were, I would say they were punters or kickers, not basketball players with those names.
Jake Baker and Luke Davis. Eli Delorier is going to wear 33. The transfer from Providence. We're also seeing the Paddy Darcy, the Australian basketball player, wear number 10. Vito Perkovic from Croatia. He's going to wear 11. Gio Imajuru, the transfer from George Mason, the big guy, he's going to wear 7. Corey Carker, JUCO point guard, will wear 5. Dahi Quinn will wear 3. Isaiah Mbang will wear 2. So we have like the all pronunciation team, I feel like, Philip. Some of these names are just crazy.
Yeah, I feel bad for the visiting team's announcers having to learn these, right? That's a little tough. But, hey, nobody's wearing a retired number this year, so, hey, at least we upgraded from that.
God. Yeah, C.J. Walker wore 14 last year, and it was we never got clarification on if that was supposed to happen or not.
I don't think it was.
But hey, he I feel like he did it justice at least. I mean, if you're going to wear a retired player, you got to be a good player, and he did. So, look, I'm hoping we can get more basketball insight as this offseason continues. Maybe get catch up with Mike Schwartz at some point. I know they're busy with workouts now. We're out of time. Fun show. Philip, appreciate you as always, man. We will be back Friday, 12 noon. Looking forward to our Friday shows. As always, Bobby Harward will be in studio. We'll probably talk more about the Sun Belt thing if I had to guess, knowing Bobby. It'll be a free-for-all Friday. We'll get into the College World Series more, recruiting, all of that. We'll see you then, Friday, 12 noon. Thanks for listening.